Welcome to Legacy Cast, your source for hearing from top influencers and industry experts and successful business owners who are telling their unique story about life, values, goals, business strategies, and the various causes they are so passionate about. Future generations will come to be impacted by what is happening today, whether positive or negative, and our mission is to focus on what is going to affect change for the better. Hosted each weekday by James Snow, a former U.S. Army combat medic, now founder and principal advisor of James Advisors Group, a full-service financial planning firm in North Texas. This is Legacy Cast. Welcome, Legacy Cast listeners. This is your host, James Snow, coming to you from North Texas, and having another wonderful rainy day at the moment. So, having our temperatures a little lower than usual, or we're not cooking at 130 right now, so that's nice. It's a little cooler with a little bit of rain, which we certainly do need. It's a blessing. But today we have a guest that is coming, and he's in the northeast area of our country, Trevor Barrett. And he's the CEO of OpSiix, and that actually is a company that has an app that's just very interesting. It's an app that connects vets organically, and so this is something that I certainly want to get some information here on the air and talk about, because this is something that is very needed out there, and I've done some referral to help Trevor try to connect with some people, and he is also connecting, from his side, obviously. But I mean, this is a huge thing. And so, without further ado, let's bring Trevor in here. Welcome to the program, Trevor.
Yeah, thanks for having me, James. I really appreciate it. So, just a kind of point of clarification, if you don't mind. The company is just starting out, so we're in the startup phase, and the app is currently being developed. So we're looking to launch for beta testing at the beginning of next summer.
Okay. Yeah, and this is something that's just really exciting from everything that I've been able to see, because now kind of talk me through a little bit there. It's something that helps connect the vets, but also allows vets to do reviews about the different veteran service resources that are out there, and kind of pulls all the resources into one place, which is a huge thing. That's sort of a need, because I mean there's tens of thousands of different resources, but it's like so many resources really that it's overwhelming, and it kind of pulls it all into one spot, right?
Yeah, no, that's exactly right. So basically, it's pretty daunting when you get out. It is either the resources seem like they're unattainable because there's so many hoops that you have to jump through, or just that there's so many that you don't know where to start. So a big part of what we want to do also, on top of kind of bringing veterans together organically in real life, through technology, is to kind of have a feature where the resources around you in your local community will be shown to you, and where they are, what they are, and they'll also be kind of similar to like Glassdoor, where people can kind of review a certain resource and let people know what they think of the resource, and kind of give it a rating.
Yeah, and that's really cool. When I got out, I just felt completely lost. When I came back, it was like, where do I turn? I didn't know what resources there were, and then from what little I would start looking, would then discover that there were tons of resources and not know which one. So I mean, this is huge. This is really a huge service, and I certainly thank you for having this particular concept, because it's going to help so many people.
Yeah, I certainly hope so. I know when I first got out, actually, well, I was in Iraq. I did 2 combat tours, and I had quite a rough time transitioning myself. And I had a couple of buddies actually commit suicide. And I think a big part of that is when you get out and you don't have that kind of sense of feeling like you're part of something bigger than yourself. So that purpose is stripped away from you, but then also you don't have that camaraderie or those guys to share your military wartime experiences with, or the support. A lot of that kind of contributes to why it's so important for vets to be able to still connect with each other in real life, which is kind of what we really want to do. So I think I had mentioned to you before, there are so many places for vets to go digitally, suicide prevention groups and, people like phone trees, like places where you can go and talk. But there's not really anything where we're utilizing technology to kind of create these interactions organically, like in real life.
Sure.
So.
Yeah, and so that would be a big step, is just being able to help connect the face-to-face time, and be able to then foster some of those communal community needs that we have, so to where we can be around people that have experienced the same things and understand, and so you don't have to kind of explain everything that you've been through, because the other person has also been through it, and so it becomes a safe place.
Yeah, no, absolutely.
Now, something you were mentioning, though, kind of leans into again, kind of the purpose of what we discuss here, is you were talking about vets being part of something larger than themselves, and that really is kind of the definition of legacy, and why I'm glad to have you on here, is because when we signed up, we wanted to be part of something bigger, and a legacy is likewise something that's bigger than ourselves, and should be something that we involve ourselves in, and why I find that a lot of veterans do really kind of can buy into, I guess, if you will, can buy into the legacy concept, because it is so natural for us. What does having a legacy mean for you, though, personally, Trevor?
Well, that's such a great question, and I'm so glad you're asking this to so many different people, because I think it's a little bit different for all of us. I think for me, just because of my values and who I am and how much I enjoy social entrepreneurship, I think for me it's about having an impact in my community, both hopefully economically, but also kind of just enabling veterans to be successful. So if I can help, my community in a way where, I can see it, I can feel it, I think that will be a legacy for me. And so I kind of want to talk a little bit about when the GI Bill first came out, right? There were all of a sudden thousands of people that now had access to higher education that didn't previously have access to higher education, right? And what this led to was a whole bunch of people now having a higher set of skills and higher set of earning power than what they previously had from generations past. And one of the byproducts, now this was not the main contributing factor, but it certainly was a contributing factor, was why we were so economically prosperous in the 50s. It was because the middle class expanded tremendously. And a big part of that was because of the GI Bill being passed in the early 40s. The first GI Bill. I'm not even sure if it was actually called the GI Bill back then. So kind of what I want to do is to help veterans be successful, because I believe that, what better group of people to help and enable to serve their community than people that are just geared to serve. It's in our DNA,
Sure.
Whether that be doing a podcast like yours that adds value to the community, or a guy that's, fixing up cars and giving them away to people. Enabling those people, I think, will just make our community just so much better.
Yeah, and since we're on the topic of higher education, I believe that we were talking earlier. There's a lot of higher education resources that are like in New York, for example, and then nationally. Is that not correct that you're kind of plugged into?
Yeah, so I'm besides doing the OpSiix thing, I also am the head of veteran services here at Rochester Institute of Technology, which is a big part of the reason why OpSiix even exists. Is just because of they have an incubator here on campus called the Simone Center that kind of is where all the interdisciplinary collaboration on campus lives. And so they've kind of connected me with a lot of resources, but through a lot of the things that I do here at RIT, we are also connected with a program called the Veteran Upward Bound Program. Now, this isn't an RIT specific program. It's a grant that's given from the education department. And the one that we have is for $1.3 million over 5 years to service veterans. But this, it's a TRIO program, and it exists nationally. There are places all over the country that are doing it. It's an amazing program. So if you don't mind, I'd actually like to talk about it a little bit. So the one we have here at Rochester, for the Veterans Upward Bound Program, the director's name is Rachel Flaherty, and she can be reached at 585-475-5495 is their phone number. But the reason why this is such a tremendous benefit is when we first get out of the military, a lot of times most of us didn't do so hot in high school. I know I didn't. And my first stop had to be a community college. Well, when I went to community college, I had to take an AccuPlacer or placement exam, right? And I didn't do so well. So I had to do remedial coursework. Well, I had to use my GI Bill benefits for that remedial coursework, right? Well, this program provides that remedial training for free at no cost to the veteran. And then they're able to kind of get a step up and be able to use their benefits even further. But the program doesn't just focus on college. They'll help you get to wherever your goals are. A lot of times in the military, if we're not doing what we did in the military when we get out, we're going to have skill gaps that need to be filled. So depending on what your career goals are, you're going to have to try to fill some of those skill gaps. So that's what this program helps with. It helps with getting you into vocational school. It helps you getting certificates taken care of. It helps you getting into community college. It helps you get into four-year schools. So it's an absolute tremendous program. Oh, and by the way, they'll help you with filling out your college applications, your financial aid forms, and advising you on how to use your benefits. So it's a really, really tremendous program.
Yeah, that's a huge thing because a lot of those forms, the FAFSA, for example, is very confusing, and a lot of the people that I see, because being in the financial planning space, is people not knowing what they should do before filling out the forms. Yeah, and so they maybe could have restructured themselves differently, and so just having someone that can talk to you about what those how you fill out those forms, what that stuff means, is very, very helpful, because otherwise it's like the saying goes, you don't know what you don't know, and then once you've done it, then it's too late to kind of go back. So it's good to have some help on filling that stuff out and make sure that you do it correctly.
I only wish that I knew about it when I first got out.
Yeah, me too. Me too. Because like I've told many people, when I came back, I was just completely lost, and spent many years just sort of here, there, everywhere. It seemed that just trying to discover where myself was, and then finally stumbled upon it by the grace of God, I think, but was able to kind of find my course. But so many people are in that same situation, and that does lead to the high numbers of suicide rates and dependency issues that come up, and all the different things that that our brothers and sisters in arms are dealing with, because they just, you get out and you don't know really where you fit in, and like you say, that skills gap that can occur, because chances are we're not going into what we did in the service. I was a combat medic. I came back. I wanted to do that kind of a thing, but there really wasn't the availability for it. So that was a forced skills gap. And so then I had to find something else, and and I had to work my way up. So I'm glad that you're plugged into these programs that's helping vets to overcome those things, because it's not an easy problem. I mean, it's a very discouraging problem, and that the more that we can do to help people is just going to be the perfect solutions.
Yeah, no, thank you for bringing that up, because I think that's something that's sorely missing in the veteran space as well. Is this is a complicated problem. It's not just kind of binary. It's multidimensional, and there's lots of different facets to it. There isn't going to be kind of a silver bullet magic answer. It's going to take hard work. It's going to take collaboration. It's going to take people working together to try to solve this issue. So the more people kind of compete, and competition isn't a bad thing. Competition inspires innovation and creativity and all of those sorts of things. But at the same time, if we want to achieve this goal, we really need to kind of come together and tackle it from different angles.
Oh, agreed. Now, as far as kind of looking at the legacy concept, is this something that you think people should look at and deliberately consider, both on a personal and business level? Just really spend some time and energy, sort of contemplating on that, what they're doing that's going to build their legacy?
Yeah, absolutely. I think, even just becoming a better person, right? You need to like wrestle with who you are and look inward. So I think that kind of looking at all of those things will definitely help with kind of creating your legacy. But I think I've heard quite a few things on your show, because I have to admit I wanted to know what I was getting myself into when I came on. But with legacy, there's so many different kind of things. There's kind of the your family, what you leave behind with your family. So like for me, one of the things the philosophies that I have with my daughter is not necessarily just making the world a better place for my daughter, but making my daughter a better person for the world.
Sure.
So she's also my legacy. So not just the impact that I have in my community and helping other veterans and those kinds of things, or even helping the local economy, but I'm going to create an awesome human being that's going to go out there and do great things too.
Sure. Yeah, and that's a very real sense of what legacy is through our children, our progeny, that we're enabling them, and we teach them and educate them and instill into them the beliefs and the traditions that we hold true, and hopefully they will follow those things and then build upon them. So it's a very direct sense of what legacy is all about.
Yeah.
So how do your views on legacy affect what you do with your business?
That's a really good question. I think it comes down to values, like a value system.
Right.
And in the Marine Corps, it's the three value sets that are kind of hammered into us the most are kind of honor, courage, and commitment, I believe. At least those are the ones that kind of stuck with me the most. And I think that kind of having the courage to do the right thing isn't always easy. And in fact, I think that sometimes that's really hard to do. Um, so I think that kind of comes into play. You know, honor, kind of, you know, being integrity, telling the truth, being upfront. I think sometimes that doesn't always come off the right way with people.
Sure.
Sometimes maybe I'm perhaps a little too blunt. But, you know, I think that there's some value in that. I think most military people can understand that, you know,
Sure.
cut to the chase, come right down to it. And that's how I am with my guys, the people I work with. I'm very truthful. I'm very upfront with them. I expect them to do the same to me. And I think that has a huge effect on OpSiix and what we've done. And then commitment. You know, this is a hard problem to tackle. It is not easy. There have been some trying times. There have been long nights. I thank God my wife is absolutely amazing. I would not be able to do this without her. So thank you, Julie. But so I think that those value sets, you know, being committed, being courageous, having honor or integrity, have all played into a lot of the successes that we've seen so far.
So when you mentioned a second ago the long nights, are there some particular things that kind of keep you up at night about your business still?
Yeah, if I'm being honest, I've done a lot of reading, because I'm new to entrepreneurship, and one of the biggest problems that startups have is with cash flow, and I am not a finance guy, and none of my teammates are finance guys either. So I've actually been looking for people on our advisory board, or maybe a kind of a CFO or somebody that can kind of help us build those kind of budgets and financial roadmaps that will help us to be successful and not run into a lot of those problems that companies have. So that's actually a skill gap that we're missing right now.
Okay. So do you believe that having, you know, I guess from what you're saying there with kind of what you're looking for is you believe that it's important to have some sort of strategy and planning put into place, you know, to have a successful business?
Absolutely. Absolutely. You know, I think that if you just have an idea, you know, it's kind of, you know, I hate to say this, but it's worthless. You know, an idea is just that. It's just an idea. Until you actually kind of plan it out, map it out, where you're going to go, have a strategy, have a 5-year plan, and kind of create that plan, you're not ready to implement it yet. And I think that's also another big reason why startups fail. From a lot of the reading I've been doing, you know, inadequate planning. It's kind of like that balancing act, right? You either you don't plan it enough or you plan too much. So, like, you know, being a perfectionist could also be a downfall for a startup or a business as well.
Sure.
So it's kind of finding that sweet spot of knowing when to implement, but also having a plan before you do.
Yeah, and you know, good plans are going to be flexible and should be, you know, in their inception and when you're putting them down on paper, you know, when you're creating that plan, just make sure that, you know, it can you know, bend and twist and turn, you know, along with all of the things that come up, because, you know, there is no always the same course. You know, every business follows a different course, and so, you know, there's not just a one size fits all for that. So it does have to be flexible.
Yeah, I'm so glad you said that, actually, because I think that's a big part of why veterans tend to be more successful than their civilian counterparts with starting businesses. And I think, you know, I think we understand it from a very kind of almost like an infantry level. You know, like no fires plan survives first contact, right? You know, you create the fires plan, the interlocking sectors of fire, where your machine guns are, where all these things, right? But as soon as rounds start flying down range, that plan goes right out the window, right? But it's important. That plan's still important because you just said it, right? You need to be able to be flexible. You need to be able to adapt and overcome. And if you didn't have that plan in place, you wouldn't be as successful when you do go to adapt. And I think it's something like veterans are 3 times more likely to be successful than a civilian when starting up a company. I think that's a huge part of it.
Yeah, 3 times more successful and capable of earning 30% more income at the same time. So I mean, those two things combined. Those two things.
That's awesome.
2 things combined. Just so long as putting the plan together, not jumping out of the plane without a parachute. Because a lot of veteran business owners try to do that too without putting the plan together, and so that's part of where my passion comes in is helping make sure that they put that together ahead of time and not get into deep water without having some sort of waders on.
Yeah, and let me just throw this out there. I don't know everything, and if you're passionate about this cause or issue, and if you're a subject matter expert, please reach out to me. I'd love to get your feedback. I'd love to collaborate with you. So yeah, please do get in touch with me. I'm always open to listen to new ideas and thoughts. So yeah, please reach out to me.
Sure. Now, what are some of the particular reasons that you found maybe that besides the failure to plan that the businesses are failing? Have you seen other reasons in your particular instance?
Well, I'd say besides the cash flow and besides not having a plan, fit people. Making sure that you have the right people, the right mix of people in your company. I'd say clashes of personality is a huge part of it. So, really kind of, and lack of empathy. You should be able to put yourself in somebody's shoes and walk a mile in their shoes before you kind of cast the first stone or judge them, right? So, in my opinion, you need to kind of become a purveyor of behavioral science if you're going to be in any kind of management position. You need to understand introversion, extroversion. You need to understand learning styles. You need to understand how those learning styles correlate with communication styles, and all those sorts of things. And actually, I think that there's kind of a common misconception by a lot of people where introversion and extroversion is thought of people that are either not social or extremely social. And that's just not the case. Introverts like to socialize just like extroverts. I think the main piece of introversion and extroversion is risk aversion. Introverts are more risk averse. Extroverts are not as risk averse. So an introvert would prefer to socialize kind of an intimate dining situation, whereas an extrovert would probably prefer maybe more of a bar or something like that. So kind of understanding those things about people, so and let me put this in a business sense. If you're tasking an introvert with something, or you're going to have a meeting with an introvert, right? So something an introvert might appreciate more than an extrovert is sending them a bulletized list of what's going to be talked about, like 24 hours to 48 hours in advance, to give them time to chew on it and think about it and come to the meeting prepared. An extrovert is probably not going to care about that as much, right? So kind of knowing those things about your people and having the right fit in your company, I think is extremely important.
You're spot on. The people that you have in your business are certainly a very important and integral piece of the puzzle. But then also, knowing when to get out of your own way, I think is a big deal. It's something that that's part of my big struggle, because I like to have my fingers in in the pie with my business all the time. And so getting out of my own way sometimes is the thing I had to remember, because other people can do a certain piece probably better than I could. And, my time is better spent, focusing on the things I'm good at. And so, it's just knowing when to, take that hat off and let somebody else wear it. And that's a really good point there. So as far as maybe some roadblocks and resources, I like to touch on that part, because there's going to be roadblocks that people are going to need to look out for, and then resources that they want to look for. Obviously, your business with OpSiix, that would be a resource I would say people need to look for. But what are some others that you found as far as roadblocks to warn a new business owner against, and then maybe some resources that have been helpful to you?
Well, I guess we're kind of starting up a little bit different than I think a lot of companies do. Mm-hmm. We have a tremendous amount of resources at our fingertips here at Rochester Institute of Technology, right? I told you about the Simone Center. So we have been put in touch with the right people. We have coaches. We have advisors. We have access to 3D printers. We have we're put in touch with people that have the right disciplines. Like, okay, I'm not good at coding. Okay, well, let me put you in touch with this person. So a lot of those roadblocks have been removed for us, but there still are some, right? Because it's an institution of higher education. We have to be really careful with how money is spent, where we're getting money from. To kind of walk that thin line of legality. Man, it's a really good question. But for me, I think that for us, it's going to be a lot different than for a lot of the folks, like your listeners. All I can say is find a place like Bunker Lab, find a place like RIT that has like those incubators. Get involved, get your hands in, find really good mentors that will guide you through the process, because it is not a one-man sport. You need lots of people to help you through the way, or else you won't make it. I think that's a barrier. Like you said, get out of your own way, right? Like take advice from people, because you're not going to be the expert in everything. And then kind of like I guess for us, the hardest challenge has been that legality part of it. Like, when do we file for our LLC? Okay, well, we can't file for our LLC and crowdfund through RIT's resources, right? So, well, we can't use this money for X, Y, or Z, but we can use it for, A, B, or C. So, kind of learning all of those things, I think that's been one of the hardest parts.
Yeah, and you were mentioning Bunker Labs because of their with the incubator environment. Another good resource, because you had mentioned also mentors, is Veterati. That's a
great resource.
As far as get some mentorship, because good mentors is going to be key in trying to succeed in business. Surround yourself with people that have been where you're at. They've moved from there. They are where you want to go. They've achieved the things that you want to achieve, and they've succeeded in areas that you want to succeed, because we are the sum of the parts of who we surround ourselves with. And so choose wisely, and surround yourself with the right people, because that's going to be really what's going to make business so much easier for you. Is who do you surround yourself with? And those mentors are just going to be so valuable. I have mentors of my own that I go to, and people all over the world that I'll reach out to, because they have skills and talents and have achieved things that I'm not able to yet, but they've done that, and so it helps me.
Yeah, absolutely. And stay positive. I would add to that, stay positive. Don't be a naysayer. I think too often we create our own self-fulfilling prophecies, where if we get negative, and no, you stay negative, people aren't going to want to be around you, at least not the right kind of people.
Sure. Yeah, negativity draws negativity, and so you draw what you are, and so the people that you need are you can control that, and so the people you need to be mindful of how you are, because you will attract that. How do your personal beliefs and values come into your business? How would you say that they play a role in your business, and how would you advise other people to incorporate them in their own?
This is a really good question. I talked a little bit about this with my value sets already, but one of the things that I had my guys do was to create their own kind of personal mission statement. So I advised them to, and I did it myself too, by the way. I'm a firm believer in leading by example,
Sure.
Which is one of my value sets that I incorporate into what I do both here at RIT as the veteran rep, but also for OpSiix. So, but anyways, back to what I was saying. So I kind of advised them to. Now this is going to sound weird. It's going to sound kind of a little morbid, but when you're thinking about your mission statement, your own personal mission statement, right? Mm-hmm. Kind of think of yourself as if you were at your funeral, right? Your own funeral, and you were sitting there watching. What are the things that you would want your loved ones, the people that you care most about in this world, to be saying about you? And think about those things. And then once you've kind of got a list of things, distill that list into the top, few things that you want to hear the most. Then use those values, those things, right, that you want to hear said about you, and you put that into your own mission statement of who you are, what drives you, what motivates you, and then live by that. Live by those words, because it's one thing to say something, but it's another thing to to live them and show that you mean them.
Yeah, and that the way you put that, Trevor, that's the very essence of what what a legacy is you looking forwards in time, as far as you telling your story your way. That's kind of what that is looking forwards at the end of your life and saying, this is what I want people to say about me. So you reverse engineer that to, this is what I'm going to do to make sure that people are saying that. And so it's a very, very good thing that you have your team, working on that as well, because, that's making them think in a much larger capacity. So I like that you're doing that. So is there something earlier in your life that you wish you had done that you didn't do, that you kind of look back with that hindsight is 2020, so to speak? You're like, I wish I had done that different, or wish I would have done that.
I really don't like to engage in thought like that too much. I'm pretty happy with where I'm at in life, and if I did things different, I wouldn't have the things that I have, and I kind of feel like the things, the struggles that I've went through, and the hard times, the hardships that I've went through have made me who I am. And without those valuable life lessons, I could be a completely different person. However, I am human, right? Right. And if I could do it all over, because hindsight is a heck of a thing, I probably would have stuck it out and went to college before the Marine Corps, and then went in as an intelligence officer. Mm. So after I got out of the Marine Corps, I worked for the DoD a little bit and kind of worked in the intelligence fields. And I learned that I was really quite good at it, and I really enjoyed it. Mm. So that's the only thing I probably would have done different.
So with your transition story, maybe you kind of taught me through, what that looked like, and how you transitioned out and then going into the entrepreneurship direction, what that looked like.
Sure. So it was actually a pretty long journey for me. transition isn't, I don't believe it to be this thing that it's like, okay, the transition's going to take 1 year or 2 years, and then I'm done. It's over. I'm now a civilian. I don't think that's how it works. And in fact, I think once you've been in the military, you don't ever become a civilian. You become a veteran. You become a well-adjusted veteran, hopefully, right? But you know, you have to kind of wrestle with that self-identity piece. And that part was really hard for me. But so I guess when I first got out, I struggled because, well, I was in the second battle of Fallujah, so we saw a lot of stuff, and I had a lot of guys that had a really hard time when they got out, and hearing about some of the hard things that they went through, and then also a lot of them isolating themselves and kind of cutting themselves off from me. That really affected me a lot too. So I guess my isolating behavior kind of manifested itself in playing video games and going to college, and that's all I did. And luckily, I didn't really get too far into kind of risk-taking behaviors, but I did drink quite a bit, and I pushed my wife away when I first got out of the Marine Corps. And I think part of what I was doing when I pushed her away was I was trying to protect her from myself. And I realize that now, but I didn't at the time, and I was really kind of a jerk to her. But so I guess going to college, having that purpose again really helped me, and kind of helped me to get out of my shell and not be isolating myself. And then once I finished college, I kind of took a job with the DoD and worked in the intelligence fields. So my transition was really kind of weird because I went from the military, from like to the civilian sector, worked in college around a bunch of 18, 19-year-olds, and then I went back to the DoD, kind of lived in Afghanistan for 3 years, right, and then came back to the civilian world again, and then almost transitioned again, right. I kind of reached a point when I was at the DoD where I realized I wasn't going to get any further in life unless I went back to school and got another degree. So I did that. After the DoD, I was sitting pretty nicely. I was pretty well taken care of, and I got another degree. Worked on my relationship with my wife, so I kind of focused on that and school. And then I think that I kind of, well, my wife got pregnant, so we have a daughter. We have a 4-year-old daughter now. So I think having my daughter Macy really led me to want to find something that was going to keep me in the local area and not in a war zone. So that's kind of how I found the job here at RIT. I tailored my search in such a way to where I could still kind of serve veterans and help out in some way. And I thought, hey, what better way than to help veterans learn about their benefits and get into school and help them with their own self-exploration and finding out who they are and where they can have an impact. So, and that's how I ended up here in this role. But, I'm not going to lie, I had a rough time. I saw a therapist at the VA, and one of the hardest things for me was learning to ask for help, learning that asking for help was okay, that it didn't make me look weak. That was probably one of the hardest things, as silly as that sounds, that was probably one of the hardest things for me when I transitioned. And I went to the VA, I saw a therapist, and there's nothing wrong with that, and kind of wrestling with that mentality of the negative connotation surrounding going to see a therapist was also very hard for me. In the Marine Corps, when you go to see the therapist, it's called going to see the wizard. I don't know if you knew that or not. But there's a negative connotation there if you think about it, right? The wizard is like this guy who does magic that is stuff that nobody understands and is of disbelief and whatever. So there's negative connotation surrounding that. So I think that was really hard for me.
Yeah, and obviously, in the military, we're conditioned to not ask for help. So, that doesn't benefit us too much, in reality, because asking for help is so necessary. Something we have to relearn, when we get out.
Yeah, and learning how to put kind of emotions and feelings into words, right? Because in our society, I think too often men are supposed to be these big, tough guys that can't have feelings and can't kind of describe anything other than rage or anger. So a lot of that stuff was really hard for me, especially as a Marine.
Yeah, and for a lot of people, it's part of that head trash that we carry around with us that we have to learn that all that stuff is just junk. There's not a lot of truth to it. It's just there, and we have to learn to kind of get around that and to get over that. As we said in the service, suck it up and shut up. We just have to suck that up and realize that that's just a bunch of head trash, and there's no good that's going to come from it.
Yeah. I would encourage the listeners. There's a blog that one of my friends from the Marine Corps wrote, Nick Matoka. It's on our website, OpSiix.com. OpSiix is spelled with 2 I's. So one of the things he talks about, though, is kind of getting over that barrier of asking for help. And I like the way he described it. He kind of described asking for help as like an arsenal in your weapon that will make you more deadly in the civilian world. I was like, wow, that's kind of a cool way to think about it.
Well, that's true. It's a good analogy, and something that does resonate. For especially for us vets, and then also any first responders. That if they can kind of think of it that way, then it certainly can help put things into a better perspective. So, kind of as winding down towards the end of our program here, I have a couple more questions for you. The first one would be if you can tell me something about you that most people don't know. It's kind of a trivia question I like to ask.
Man, that's a hard one. I'm a pretty open book, to be honest. What you see is what you get. To be completely honest with you, I don't know as though there's too much. I mean, you could look at my Facebook page. I'm doing all kinds of goofy, silly stuff with my daughter. I don't really hold back. So, I don't know. I guess maybe a lot of people don't know I play the guitar. It's kind of an outlet for me.
Good outlet. I'm a prior musician also, with some classical training. So, music is definitely an outlet. So I can appreciate that one.
Yeah, cool.
So for our final question, it's the one that I love asking all of my jarhead guests. So if you've done enough research on my program, you know what this one is. If you're to be a new color crayon, what color would that be, and how would you describe it?
I've listened to a few of your shows. I've never heard you answer this question. Marines aren't the only crayon eaters out there in the military. So if I answer it, you gotta answer it too. Is that a deal?
Sure.
All right. I don't know. I think mine would have to be maybe kind of a blue crayon, I guess, because blue's my favorite color. It's also my daughter's favorite color. It's something we share and I love. And who doesn't love a blue raspberry slushie? So that's the flavor. The flavor would be blue raspberry slushie. Slushies have been kind of a theme in my life right now, or since I introduced my daughter to them. She wants one every day now. So there's my answer. How about you?
Well, I guess since I was a combat medic, mine would have to be that burgundy color that our cartouche patch had on it. So
Okay.
that burgundy color would be the color I'd pick. Even though my favorite color is yellow, I think burgundy would be the color of the crayon. Flavor-wise, it had to be like pomegranate. I think it's a little bit tart and tangy, but a little bit sweet at the same time. Sort of like my personality. I'm a little bit tart, so.
Fair enough. You need to come up with another Marine Corps question. Maybe I could help you with that one.
Yeah, we'll have to do that. Well, yeah, I've enjoyed having our time here, Trevor, and you have your website, OpSiix, OpSiix.com. Is there some other ways that people can get a hold of you for being able to contact?
Sure. Actually, the email I probably use most, even though we have an OpSiix email, but the email I probably use most because I have the other one forwarding to my school email, which is it's my initials, so tbbges@rat.edu. I'm pretty responsive on that, but also LinkedIn, Facebook. Find me, connect with me. I'm like I said, I'm pretty open to connecting with people. So
okay, perfect. And as I always say to my guests, I will see you around the bend, my friend.
Yeah, thanks for having me, James. I really appreciate it. Really enjoyed this.
Thank you. You've been listening to Legacy Cast. Thank you for joining us today, and be sure to come back next time as we speak with more top influencers, industry experts, and business owners from around the world.